Tier 100 skins are the crown jewel of a Fortnite battle pass, so today we're taking a look at every single tier 100 skin inside of Fortnite and ranking them on a tier list from S all the way down to F. Kicking off the list, we have Sub-Zero. This is our most recent addition to the list, and I have to say, Sub-Zero is one of my favorite tier 100 skins of all time. And yeah, I'll admit, there might be some bias here since I'm a huge Mortal Kombat fan, and Sub-Zero has always been my main. But even setting that bias aside, Epic Games absolutely knocked it out of the park with this collab. So for me, Sub-Zero lands an S. And next up, we have the Night Rose. Chapter 6 kicked off its tier 100 skins with an absolute banger, and Night Rose was easily my favorite from the battle pass overall. Her design fit the theme of the season perfectly, and the color scheme was spot on. And as if that wasn't enough, her tactical edit style takes the skin to another level, as it's arguably just as good, if not a little better than the base design. So when a skin has a great base design, great alternate styles, and is Toon Spider's favorite skin to simp over, you have to admit it's a great skin, so we'll put her into S. And next up, we have Meowdas. Now obviously, this is a crossover of Midas times Meowdas, and for what they were going for with the remix season, I think the skin was pretty good, but we'll put him in B. And next up, we have Shuri. Now don't get me wrong, on her own she's a fantastic skin. She just didn't feel like a skin that should have been at tier 100. That said, I still think Shuri is a pretty solid skin overall, so I'm gonna put her in A tier. And moving on, we have Megalo Don from Chapter 5, Season 3. I'll keep this one short and to the point. I'm just not a huge fan of the skin whatsoever. Nothing about the design really stands out in a way that makes me want to use the skin, so with that in mind, I'll put him in C. And next up, we have Hades. Hades is an absolute powerhouse when it comes to design. That black and green color scheme gives him an eerie, almost horror-like presence, and I love the mysterious vibe that he gives off. And what really takes the skin to the next level are the alternate styles that he received. The Immortal style builds on his base look, while the Lethian style completely switches things up with a sleek purple and silver color scheme that I really enjoyed. In my opinion, Hades is easily one of the coolest tier 100 skins that we've ever received, so I'm gonna put him into S. And next up on the list, we have Valeria. Her base design alone is already super solid, with a great color scheme and a great design, but when you add the Burning Ambition style, it makes the skin even better. I'd love to see more Valeria skins in the future, but for right now, this is the only one we've got, and she's a great one, so we'll put her into A. And moving on with our list, we have Kado Thorne. Now this is a skin that's really grown on me over time, and my thoughts on him have definitely changed since his release in Chapter 4, Season 4. I've always loved the human version of Kado, as the design is clean and the variety of edit styles make him even better. But for the longest time, I just couldn't get behind the vampire look, and even now, there are still a few things that I'd tweak, but I've come around to appreciate both looks for Kado, so with that in mind, we'll put him into A. And next up on our list, we have Optimus Prime from the Transformers. I don't hate the skin, it's just not for me, as I never really enjoyed the Transformer movies or any of the cartoons growing up. I will say, the skin is not nearly as bulky as I initially expected when he was first announced, but even with that, I just find myself not really enjoying him, so we'll put him into C. And next up on our list, we have Mizuki. Now Mizuki is not only one of my favorite tier 100 skins, but in general, she's one of my favorite skins in the entire game. The various shades of blue that they went for with the color scheme were perfect, and the Magnum style was just the icing on the cake for an already perfect skin that's gonna land an S. And moving on, we have the Ageless. Just like Mizuki, the Ageless is by far one of my favorite tier 100 skins as well. For starters, I absolutely love the night aesthetic for skins, so I was sold from the start. And the skin gets even sicker with the champion style that's fully armored up, and he remains one of my favorites on the list, landing him an S. Next up, we have Spider-Gwen. Now Spider-Gwen was a character that I think a lot of us were super excited to receive, and I have to say, she certainly wasn't a disappointment. Her base style was fantastic, and they even gave us an unmasked style to go along with the base look. If I had one minor complaint, it's that I wish we had received a non-cell shaded style resembling how she looks in the comics. But even with that aside, she's a great addition as a tier 100, landing an S. And moving on, we have Darth Vader. Design-wise, I think the skin looks fantastic, but he's just not practical to use, as his skirt and his cape feel overly bulky, and they can be really distracting when playing. And I get it, the cape is a core part of Vader's look, but I feel like they could have toned it down a little bit, similar to how they handled Samurai Vader, or at least given us the option to remove it entirely. At the end of the day though, Vader looks great, but he's just not the most enjoyable skin to use, and because of that, I'm gonna have to place him into B. And moving on to Chapter 3 Season 2, we have Doctor Strange. And visually, he looks great. His iconic outfit and details are all there, and if you're a fan of his movie design, I'd be willing to bet that this is one of your favorites in the game. That said, I definitely would have preferred to have a comic edit style, so I'll put him into B. And next up on the list, we have Spider-Man. Now ever since Marvel characters were introduced to Fortnite, Spider-Man was a skin that we were all dying to have, and I have to say the skin absolutely lived up to the hype. He launched with his classic red and blue suit, a sleek symbiote variant, and the future Foundation style, giving him some solid variety. On top of that, the season super styles went so well with the design, making him even better. And without a doubt, I'm gonna put him into S. Now heading into Chapter 2 Season 8, we have Carnage. And unfortunately, I don't think his design lived up to the potential. Instead of going with the more vibrant, comic-inspired look, they stuck with his movie appearance, which resulted in some muted colors that don't really pop in game, and I never really find myself running the skin, so we're gonna put him into C. And next up on the list, we have Rick Sanchez. Now I know a lot of you might not agree with me, but I really don't care for the skin as a whole. Sure, he made a lot of sense as a collab skin during the Invasion season, but just because a skin fits the theme doesn't automatically make it good, and for me, Rick doesn't stand out, so I'm gonna put him into C. And moving on, we have Spire Assassin. I'm not sure why this skin has never clicked with me, and in all honesty, I think her item shop counterpart is much better. Simply put, I'm not a fan, so we're gonna put her into F. And then we have Mace from Chapter 2 Season 5. Mace is a skin that I think a lot of people overlook, especially since Mando got full armor at tier 100. I enjoy every single style leading up to his full armored look, so for me, this one lands in the A tier. And coming in next on the list, we have Iron Man from Chapter 2 Season 4. Now Iron Man was a no-brainer for a tier 100 skin of a Marvel season, and I for one was fully on board. I love that we got a style for Tony Stark, and that we were able to transform into Iron Man by using a simple emote. And I think as far as design goes for both styles, they knocked it out of the park, so we're gonna put him into S. Moving on, we have Midas, one of the most beloved tier 100 skins of all time, and rightfully so. He played a key role in the season's storyline, and his design was top tier. On top of the base look, Midas had some fantastic variations like Ghost Midas or Shadow Midas, depending on the faction that you chose, with my personal favorite being Shadow. Since its introduction over 4 years ago, Midas has become an iconic Fortnite character, and despite alternate versions of him appearing in the item shop and some battle passes, the OG version remains the best, so I'll put him into S. And rounding out Chapter 2, we have Fushion. Now this is one of those skins that often gets overlooked. However, I must admit that Fushion has really grown on me over time. That said, I still don't think he's top tier by any means, so we'll put him into B. And moving on to Season X, we have Ultima Knight himself. I'm not a huge fan of Ultima Knight's first few styles, but where this skin really wins me over is with the Origin style, as it's basically just a redesigned Black Knight with silver, gold, and red color options that are all fantastic, so we'll put him into A. And moving on to Season 9, we have Vendetta. Now I know a lot of you enjoy this skin, but honestly, I'm just not on board. I don't think he's terrible, but I still can't bring myself to enjoy the skins, so for now he lands in C. And moving on to Season 8, we have Luxe. And sure, she was a bit of a letdown for a tier 100 skin, but I think a lot of you guys are a little too harsh, as I think she looks pretty solid overall, so I'm gonna put her into B. And moving on, we have the Ice King. Now this is everything you could want in a Fortnite skin, from his sleek imposing design to multiple color schemes to unlock, so I'm gonna put him into S. And heading down to Season 6, we have Dyer. Now I'm a huge fan of Halloween skins, and I love that we got a werewolf skin with progressive styles to go along with him. But for me, I really love Dyer, so I'm gonna put him into A. And moving on to Season 5, we have Ragnarok. Now I may get some pushback on this one, but I've never been a huge fan of the skin. I'm not really big on the Viking aesthetic, and most of his styles, aside from the final one, just aren't my style, so I'll put Ragnarok into C. And moving on with the list, we have Omega. Now if you're a Fortnite fan, you know how iconic Omega is, and I personally buy into all the hype. This was one of the first Battle Pass skins that really wowed me in terms of design, and he still impresses me years later. I love every single one of his styles, and the colored lights are just the icing on the cake for a skin that lands in S tier. And moving on to Season 4, we have Reaper. Now this is one of the most beloved skins in the Fortnite community, mostly because he was a sweat skin and he was the meme version of John Wick before the official collab years later. I feel like the novelty has worn off a little bit over time for the skin, but with that being said, this is a pretty good looking skin with a lot of nostalgia, so we'll put him into B. And wrapping up our list, we have the Black Knight. Now although Black Knight was obtained at tier 70 and the first ever battle pass in the game, he was the final reward, which technically makes him tier 100. He set the standard moving forward for tier 100 skins, and he remains one of the best overall skins in the game to this day, landing him in S. So that'll do it for today's video, but be sure you let me know down in the comments below what your favorite tier 100 skin is and what you think of my personal list. But until next time guys, as always, take care and stay twisty.